Why some people wake up at 3 a.m. every night, and no matter what they try, they can't fall asleep again. It doesn't start when you open your eyes. It starts before that moment even happens. Something in your brain quietly shifts right when your body expects to go deeper into sleep, and almost no one realizes it while it's happening. Not because of stress, not because of insomnia, but because something inside your brain switches on at the exact time it should be shutting down. And once that switch happens, your body stays tired, but your brain won't shut off. If you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. wide awake with your mind suddenly active for no reason, what's happening inside your brain in that moment is not random. And in the next few minutes, you'll start to see why this keeps happening, even to people who do everything right. I'm Dr. Sarah, a sleep medicine specialist with a background in psychiatry, and for years I've studied what really happens inside the brain during the night, especially in people who feel like their sleep suddenly stopped working. Many of them are over 40 and never had this problem before, until one night something changed without warning, and from that point forward, sleep was never the same again, even though nothing obvious seemed wrong. I've worked with thousands of people who wake up at 3 a.m. and feel like their brain turns on instead of shutting down. They go to bed tired and ready to sleep, but in the middle of the night, something shifts. Their thoughts begin to move faster, their body no longer feels deeply relaxed, and falling back asleep becomes a struggle every single night. If this sounds familiar, take a second to like this video and follow the channel, because what you're about to understand is rarely explained this way, and once you see it clearly, it changes everything. Not just how you sleep, but how you interpret what's happening, because this is not just insomnia, and in a moment, you'll start to understand why your brain behaves this way. Most people believe their problem starts when they wake up, but in reality, the process begins much earlier in the night, before you even realize anything is wrong. There is a silent shift happening inside the brain, one that prepares the body to either stay asleep or move toward alertness without your control. And this is why so many people feel confused, because they didn't do anything to cause it consciously. They didn't suddenly become more stressed overnight. They didn't forget how to sleep, yet their brain begins acting as if something requires attention right in the middle of the night. And what's even more surprising is that this pattern follows a very specific biological logic, one that explains why it often happens at the same time, why your brain won't shut off once it starts, and why going back to sleep feels completely different than before. But to understand that, we need to look at what your brain is actually doing in that moment. You go to bed feeling tired, your body is ready to rest, your eyes feel heavy, your energy is low. Everything signals that sleep should come easily, and for a moment it almost does, until something inside your mind keeps going. Your thoughts don't fully slow down, they just become quieter but still active, like something in the background never really turns off. And even if you fall asleep, that state doesn't feel deep or stable. It feels light, almost like your brain is partially awake. Then, at some point during the night, you wake up at 3 a.m. without any clear reason. No noise, no interruption, just your eyes opening and your mind already active, as if it had been waiting for that moment. Your brain is alert, your thoughts begin to move faster, your awareness becomes sharp again, and your body no longer feels fully relaxed. It feels like sleep has been interrupted from the inside, not from anything happening around you. And no matter how still you lie there, you can't fall asleep the same way again. It's not like the beginning of the night. Something feels different now. Your brain won't shut off, and the more you try to relax, the more you seem to feel. And even if you eventually fall back asleep, it doesn't feel complete. You wake up tired, mentally heavy, physically drained, like your sleep never fully restored you, as if something blocked it from doing its job. And this is where most people misunderstand what's happening, because they assume it's just bad sleep or that something is wrong with them. But what's actually happening inside the brain follows a very specific pattern, one that begins before you even wake up and continues long after you open your eyes. The problem isn't that you can't sleep, and it's not that your body forgot how to rest. The real problem is happening at a deeper level, inside the systems that control when sleep is allowed. Because in the middle of the night, your brain is not failing, it is actively changing its state. Your brain begins switching into a form of alertness right when it should be going deeper into sleep. Not full wakefulness, but a subtle internal activation where awareness starts increasing and restorative processes begin to slow down without you consciously choosing it. In this state, your brain stops prioritizing deep sleep and starts prioritizing monitoring and awareness. It becomes more sensitive, more responsive, and less willing to fully disconnect, as if something requires quiet attention. And once that switch happens, your sleep becomes fragmented, unstable, and incomplete. You may still be asleep at times, but the depth of that sleep is no longer consistent, and your brain never fully lets go. This is why waking up at 3 a.m. feels so different. It doesn't feel like normal waking. It feels sudden, sharp, almost like your mind was already active beneath the surface, waiting for the moment to fully emerge. And what makes this even more confusing is that it doesn't feel connected to anything obvious. No clear stress, no external trigger, no conscious thought causing it, which is why so many people misinterpret what's happening. But what actually causes this switch, what pushes the brain into this alert state at night, is not what most people have been told, and it's not something you can fix just by trying harder to sleep, because the source of it begins much deeper in the brain.
Sleep science has started to describe this pattern with much more precision, not as random waking, and not simply as a sleep disorder, but as a structured biological response inside the brain, one that activates during the night under specific conditions and quietly interferes with the stability of your sleep long before you even become aware of it. This state is known as the neural sleep inhibition response, a neurobiological condition where the brain shifts into a subtle alert mode while the body is still in a sleep state. It is not full wakefulness, but it is no longer true restorative sleep. It is a controlled state of internal vigilance. In this state, cortisol can begin rising earlier than its natural circadian timing. The nervous system becomes more sensitive to internal signals, and the circadian rhythm starts to lose synchronization. The systems that regulate deep sleep and those that regulate alertness begin to overlap in a way they normally shouldn't, which means even if you fall asleep at the beginning of the night, your brain is no longer fully committed to maintaining deep sleep cycles. It becomes more reactive, more easily activated, and more likely to shift into lighter stages of sleep where waking becomes significantly easier. This is why waking up at 3 a.m. feels so precise and repetitive, and why your brain won't shut off once it happens. Because the transition into alertness did not begin when you opened your eyes. It began earlier, as the brain gradually entered this inhibited sleep state. Once the neural sleep inhibition response is active, your brain increases access to thought activity, your awareness sharpens, and your internal environment becomes more stimulating, even in complete external silence, which is why the experience feels so internally driven. And this is where everything starts to connect at a deeper level, because this response is not random and not accidental. It follows a predictable biological pattern, one that determines not only why you wake up, but why it happens at nearly the same time night after night. Think of your brain like a night security system, quietly monitoring everything while you sleep, always scanning for signals of safety or potential alert, even when you are completely unaware of it. It does not fully turn off at night. It simply changes how it operates, depending on what it perceives internally. When everything feels safe to the brain, your nervous system begins to down-regulate naturally. Melatonin flows in a stable and predictable rhythm. Your body moves into deeper stages of sleep, and recovery processes continue without interruption. This is when sleep feels continuous and you are able to stay asleep through the night. But when the brain detects even a subtle signal of alert, something almost imperceptible, it does not wait for danger to become obvious. It shifts early, activating a protective state that prioritizes awareness over restoration, even if there is no real external threat. This is not panic. It does not feel intense or dramatic. It is much quieter than that. Just a subtle increase in internal vigilance, a slight elevation in awareness, enough to change how the brain manages sleep without fully waking you up at first. And this is where the neural sleep inhibition response begins to interfere. Your brain stays partially active beneath the surface. Your sleep becomes lighter and less stable. Your system becomes more reactive to internal signals, and the threshold for waking becomes much lower, even in complete silence and darkness. Which is why waking up at 3 a.m. becomes more likely, and why your brain won't shut off once it happens. Because the brain was already in a semi-alert state before you opened your eyes, and that state continues after you wake up, making it much harder to return to sleep. But here is the part most people never hear. This shift into vigilance is not triggered randomly, and it is not just about stress or habits. There is a deeper biological timing behind it, one that determines exactly when this response is activated and why it tends to repeat night after night. After 40, this pattern starts to appear more frequently, not suddenly and not without reason, but as a result of gradual biological changes that affect how the brain regulates sleep and how sensitive it becomes during the night, even in people who never struggled before. This is not because something is wrong with you. It is not a failure of your body. It is a shift in how your system responds to internal signals, especially cortisol, which becomes more reactive and less predictable, and begins to influence the brain earlier in the night. At the same time, the circadian rhythm becomes more fragile, less stable than it used to be, and more sensitive to small disruptions. That stability that once kept your sleep consistent no longer holds with the same strength, making nighttime transitions more vulnerable, which makes the brain more reactive at night, more aware of subtle internal changes, and quicker to shift into alert mode, even when there is no real reason to wake up. This is where the neural sleep inhibition response becomes easier to activate without warning. So what used to happen occasionally, maybe once in a while without pattern, begins to repeat more often. Waking up at 3 a.m. becomes familiar, struggling to fall asleep again becomes expected, and your brain won't shut off the way it used to. And over time, this repetition starts forming a pattern inside the brain, a learned rhythm of waking and alertness that reinforces itself night after night, making it feel automatic and harder to interrupt, as if your system has adapted to this new behavior. But this pattern is not fixed, and it is not something your brain is locked into permanently, because even though it feels consistent, it is still being driven by underlying signals that can be influenced and adjusted. And once you understand which signals are driving it and why they tend to activate at the same time, you begin to see that this pattern follows a logic, one that explains not only why it repeats, but what would need to change for it to stop. Because this state can be influenced, even if it feels automatic, persistent, and completely out of your control. The brain is not locked into this pattern permanently. It is constantly adapting to internal signals that determine whether it maintains deep sleep or gradually shifts into alert mode during the night, even without your awareness.
Not by forcing sleep, because the more you try to force it, the more the brain interprets effort as a form of activation. Not by trying to shut your mind down, because resistance keeps the nervous system engaged. And not by overriding the system artificially, because that does not resolve the underlying biological trigger that is causing the pattern to repeat. but by changing the signals the brain receives at night, the ones that regulate safety, timing, and internal balance. These signals directly influence the nervous system. They shape how cortisol behaves during the night, and they determine whether the circadian rhythm remains stable or begins to drift into instability. When those signals begin to shift in the right direction, the nervous system starts to downregulate more effectively. Cortisol stops rising earlier than its natural rhythm, and the brain no longer maintains that subtle background vigilance that keeps it partially alert while you are trying to sleep. This is when the neural sleep inhibition response begins to reduce its influence, not abruptly, but progressively over time. As the brain starts to feel safer internally, it becomes less reactive and more willing to re-enter deeper, more stable sleep cycles. And this is where the experience of sleep starts to change, not just in how long you sleep, but in how your brain behaves during the night. Your thoughts become less accessible, your awareness no longer spikes as easily, and waking up at 3 a.m. becomes less automatic. Which means staying asleep through the night becomes possible again in a way that feels natural and sustainable, not forced or artificial, because the brain is no longer interrupting the process, it is allowing it to happen. But this shift only happens when one specific piece is properly addressed, the one most people overlook even when they improve their habits, routines, and environment. And without that piece, the brain continues receiving the same signals. Because that missing piece is directly connected to how the brain interprets safety at night and how it decides whether to maintain sleep or activate alertness instead. And once you understand what that piece is, you start to see why everything else alone has never been enough to fully resolve the problem. The goal isn't to force sleep, because the more you try to force it, the more the brain shifts into effort and control, which are states that naturally oppose deep rest. Sleep is not something you create through pressure. It is something the brain allows under the right conditions, when it no longer feels the need to stay partially alert. The real objective is to support the brain while it is experiencing the neural sleep inhibition response and help it gradually transition back into a stable nighttime state, where alertness no longer interrupts sleep cycles and the internal environment becomes more predictable, allowing the brain to remain committed to deep sleep. That is why some people choose to use a natural, doctor-approved nighttime support, not as a shortcut or artificial solution, but as a way to reinforce the biological signals that regulate sleep from within, especially during the most sensitive hours of the night. These types of support are designed to help maintain consistent melatonin timing so the brain stays aligned with its circadian rhythm, support balanced cortisol patterns overnight, reducing the likelihood of early or irregular spikes, and promote a calmer nervous system before sleep begins. This creates a more stable internal environment where the brain does not feel the need to activate vigilance and where the neural sleep inhibition response becomes less likely to dominate the night, allowing deeper sleep cycles to occur more naturally without constant interruption. It is important to understand this is not a sedative approach. It does not override or suppress brain function, and it does not force the body into unconsciousness. Instead, it supports the biological framework of sleep, working with the brain rather than against it. And because of that, many people begin to notice gradual changes, such as fewer awakenings at 3 a.m., a reduced sense of mental overactivity during the night, and improved ability to fall back asleep without the same level of effort or frustration. If you want to see which support many people are using, you can check the first pinned comment below, where more details are available about how it works and why it has become a preferred option for those seeking a more natural and supportive approach. But this is only part of the picture, because even with the right support, there is still a deeper layer to understand, one that explains why this pattern tends to happen at very specific times during the night, and what that reveals about your brain's internal timing. If you've been waking up at 3 a.m. feeling like your brain won't shut off and your mind suddenly becomes active without warning, this is not a lack of discipline, and it is not something you are doing wrong, even if it feels like you should be able to control it, because what is happening is not driven by willpower. It is also not simply stress and not just a bad habit that formed over time. What you are experiencing follows a biological pattern, one that is rooted in how your brain regulates safety during the night and how it decides whether to remain asleep or shift into a state of awareness without your permission. Your brain is simply stuck in a neural sleep inhibition response, a state where your brain maintains subtle alertness even when your body is trying to rest. And that is why your sleep becomes fragmented and why waking up at 3 a.m. feels so consistent. And when the right signals begin to be restored, the brain no longer needs to maintain that level of vigilance, the nervous system becomes more stable, cortisol follows a more natural rhythm, and sleep is no longer interrupted in the same way, allowing deeper and more continuous rest. This is when sleep can stabilize again, not instantly, but progressively as the brain begins to trust the night and stops activating that internal alert response that has been interfering with your ability to stay asleep through the night. But there is a specific reason why this alert response tends to happen at the same time, especially between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. And it is directly connected to how your cortisol rhythm behaves during the night in ways most people have never been shown. And in the next video, I will explain exactly why this timing happens, what triggers the brain to shift into alert mode at that hour, and what that reveals about your internal sleep regulation and your ability to stay asleep consistently. Because once you understand that part, this entire pattern stops feeling random and starts to make complete biological sense in a way that changes how you see your sleep and what is actually required to restore it.